been being chased in, trying to get back to their pre-prepared positions in order to report to the commanding officer there precisely what's about to come through the hedge dividing the German forces from the Allied forces. They've had some fairly serious backup as well. Stug 3 and the 222 armoured car just coming through the gap. Now that's interesting, the Stug 3's got a surprise attached. Aside from the 20mm cannon and the MG34 machine gun in the turret, he's towing what looks like a Pak 38 or a Pak 42 anti-tank gun. Last German vehicle coming through there, Orange troop carrier. To both the armour and the firepower of the German defensive positions. The two armoured cars also able to assist. Those are incredibly effective, as I said, very small profile. You could pretty much hide it in a bush with the muzzle sticking out. Could provide a very nasty surprise for any advancing Allied forces, taking out the lead tanks to stop the convoy before hooking it back up to the vehicle and doing what's known as shoot and scoot tactics, which is hit the lead vehicles, stop the Allied convoy, hook it back up and get out of there. So the reconnaissance forces obviously been deploying delaying tactics to allow the defensive forces you see arrayed now in the trenches time to fully prepare. Including ones fitted with anti-tank guns, ones fitted with bridging equipment for engineers. All kinds of machinery could be fitted to this hull. Of course, Irving Rommel himself, facing this lot, is probably feeling a little naked at the moment, but he's brought a friend. Rolling in behind him, the first of the M4 Shermans. Interesting tank this. Powered by, would you believe, a radial aero engine. Remember what David was saying about moving sideways, changing the aspect ratio to make it very difficult to hit you. Troops have dismounted from the SDKZ 251 and from the sidecar unit. They're engaging the Allied Jeep with small arms fire. Now the reconnaissance element has reported the position of the German forces. So the first of the Allied artillery support arriving, while to combat the advancing Allied troops, the trench mortars are being deployed and fired. You can see them firing from the German positions from the backline trench. Two more of the M3 personnel carriers is an M8 Greyhound armoured car, six-wheel vehicle. very similar in both concept and layout to the German SDKFZ 222. Now the white M3 didn't only appear as a half-track, it also appeared as a wheeled vehicle. We can see the first of those arriving as more of the Jeeps are coming in. This will very much be a probing movement. What the Allied forces on the right-hand side of the battlefield are doing is moving as far forward as they can to get a feel for just how strong this German defensive position is. And more artillery support coming in there. German trench mortars replying, trying to keep the Allied troops' heads down. Second Sherman, and what looks like a Sherman but is in fact an M18. M18 tank destroyer, very much upgraded gun, no top to the turret on that, so keeping speed up, believe it or not. That was one of the fastest tanks of the Second World War, capable of 75 miles an hour. Right, the Allied artillery are finding the range here to keep the Germans' heads down. Troops are dismounting from the personnel carriers. The troops coming down the centre represent the 2nd Oxen Bucks Infantry, GI 4145, 3rd Armoured actually carrying some of the 82nd Airborne in their vehicles, and your own hometown regiment, the Leicester Regiment from GSI. The troops taking up position in the centre of the battlefield. And over to the left we've got the Tommy Atkins Society, the East Yorkshire LHG, the Hallamshire Regiment LHG, and the Dingo Armoured Guard that they've got from Phantom HQ. German anti-tank vehicles opening up. Allied commander deploying his forces right across the battlefield. You'll notice that the troops that have deployed from the armoured personnel carriers, the white M3s, are following up behind the vehicle, because in this case there's a lot of possibility of small arms fire coming from the trenches. And very sensibly, the Allied infantry are using the vehicles as mobile cover, so they're advancing in behind them. David knows a lot more about these vehicles than I do, so he's going to tell you a bit about the Allied vehicles now.
So we can see a range of armour coming down the field at us at the moment. Tanks, I think most of us are quite clear about. We've got a couple of Shermans there. The Sherman, of course, the American mass-produced vehicle. 49,000 Sherman tanks made in the Second World War. We mentioned there's a radial engine in the back of one of them. They couldn't make enough of one type of engine, hence we've got all these different types. We hear it called the M4A1, that means it's got a cast L. M4A2, it means it's got a twin diesel in the back. M4A4, all of these names are because of the different engines. Now the Sherman starts the war with a 75mm gun, so the size of the hole at the end of the barrel, 75mm across. It gets a bigger gun, and we've got one of the Germans out there has got a later war 76mm barrel gun. Doesn't sound much different, but it's a much longer gun as well as being slightly lighter, and it can fire around with a lot more force, kinetic energy behind it. So if we're firing at these skirmishers, like we can see there, more chance that round will penetrate the armour. We've also got, it was mentioned there, a tank destroyer. The Americans thought tanks shouldn't fight tanks. Tank destroyers were really an anti-tank gun on a track chassis. Get it somewhere quick, make them fast, and they can take on enemy tanks if they are on the attack. it doesn't really work for the Americans actually. You've never got the right vehicle in the right place at the right time, so they end up using these anti-tank destroyers, as they were part of the anti-tank command. They ended up being used almost all over the place, just as an anti-tank gun rather than a specialised weapon for racing forward. Now you can see the vehicles progressing slowly forward. Again, this is all done, just as a diagrammatic in a way, for you to be able to see. Again, the last thing they'd want to be doing is normally it would be speed as well, using that speed to cover the ground. 30 miles an hour is a top speed of a Sherman, and it's about 30 tons. People think, why didn't they make a bigger tank like the Tiger? They've got us bring them all the way across the Atlantic or across the Pacific to fight. So 30 tons is a problem for most dock size to handle. And it's also a simple tank, the American tanks. Simple because it's a citizen army that needs to be trained quickly. They don't want overcomplicated weapon systems. And it was a very, very effective vehicle. We're the first army, British Army used it for the first time at the Battle of Alamein. We love it. We think it's a great tank, like the American rifle tank out there as well, the Honey, or the Stuart tank as it was sometimes called. British soldiers called it a Honey because it was a Honey, it worked. It kept going in the morning, you didn't have to spend too long on it. So these were considered, even though they might be in top trumps, not the most effective tank on the battlefield. There were so many of them, and the American and the Allied way of war was swamping the battlefield with equipment, with artillery, with air power. That meant that the odd superiority of one or two of those German vehicles with thicker arm or maybe a more powerful gun, that would just not count. There'll be more of those Shermans to come, and they will be able to swamp the enemy. A bit rough on the crews, but they'll get there in the end.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. M18 opening up there. Now, classic deployment being shown here. The best way to take a defensive position is both ends simultaneously, roll it up from each end. And that's what the Allied forces are deploying to do here. You can see they've advanced on the right hand. They've captured the first trench. They're waiting for the troops on the other side to take their objective. Far trench on the left hand side. And at that point they'll start moving on the trenches in the middle. Tremendous amount of small arms fire going down here. One of the most effective weapons in this kind of battle was the German MG32 and MG4 machine guns. Still some of the fastest firing machine guns built anywhere in the world. And it was literally the Allied troops like walking into a buzzsaw. Horrendously effective weapon. You can see the forward positions starting to retreat back to the final redoubt, the final trench. Simply too much in the way of firepower facing them. Allied forces have now advanced to both ends of the defensive line. And the troops are deploying forward of the vehicles to the centre. Vehicles now providing heavy fire support with their 50 cal machine guns, and of course the 75mm guns in the Shermans. Allied troops very close to taking the forward line of trenches now. Moving forward on both the left and the right. obvious safety reasons. What we're looking at here is a classic infantry deployment with armoured support, again, defensive position. Rear trench still giving fire support with heavy mortars. You can see that some of the German vehicles have been hit. Some of the Allied vehicles have been hit for that matter. The M5 steers and the M8 green on the right hand side. Troops in the centre rushing forward to take the German forward positions. German defence is in real trouble now. One last line of defence. Much spoken about the confusion and the fog of war. Looking at the amount of smoke and dust, you can see what they mean. Even though you're fighting in close combat, it is actually possible to lose track of people. Allied troops consolidating their positions with one of the German forward trenches. Moving forward on the left and the right. As I said, the best way to take a defensive position such as this is both ends at the same time and then roll it up into the middle. But it's this final stab, this is where the fighting gets unbelievably bloody. Because despite their armoured support, the troops are going to have to get into that trench, and that's where basically you're fighting with two knives and bayonets. Machine guns, very useful weapon. Very high rates of fire for a machine gun, but firing a 50 cal bullet, so eventually you're getting a cannon-sized slug at machine gun rates. Very cautiously because they don't know what the Germans have got in this last position. So ladies and gentlemen, with the final whistles blown, the Allied troops are moving forward on each end of the last German line. cries of "Index" from the troops, that means the battle is over. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we gather here for this show as an act of commemoration and remembrance every year. And with the end of the battle, there's only one piece of music to play, because a battle like this would have taken hundreds of lives. So, if you would, ladies and gentlemen, join me in 2-minute silence, not just for the fallen of 2 world wars, but the fallen of every conflict.